Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to the second part of The Path to a New Edition. Now this series is going through the playtest packages that were sent out to the D&D Next group, which I was fortunate enough to be a member of back in 2012. Now this second one came out on the 13th of August 2012, and it's got a few improvements and a few changes from the first one, but I'll go through those. So let's go over to the desktop and have a look. So this is the second packet. And instead of getting a nice introductory letter as we got last time, this time we've got a packet summary. D&D Next August 13th playtest, using this playtest packet. And it goes through the different documents within it, and then gives you a summary of the changes they've made. So, general rules changes. The way player hit points are calculated has changed, and hit points are now lower in player characters and monsters. Well, this was something I never commented on in the last one, because there were no character generation rules. There was no real way of levelling up much. So, with the characters, they just had their first level hit points, which for the Dwarf Warrior Dwarf Cleric had 17 hit points at first level, which is quite a bunch. So they've modified it to be a more traditional amount now. Being surprised no longer changes your initiative. Opportunity attacks. The opportunity attack is back, but it's triggered only by leaving a foe's reach. Well, attacks of opportunity were a big thing in 3rd edition. They weren't a positive addition to the game. They caused a lot of problems. Attacks of opportunity as you moved around in combat became extremely common. And to tell the truth, there were so many adventures where the bad guy got beaten because he would attempt to retreat at the end of combat. All the players would get an attack of opportunity as he moved, and he'd just get slaughtered because he'd take full damage. We've got ranged attack and melee. Short rests changed. Long rest variants we've got in here. Conditions. Armors and weapons. They've been heavily revised, including damage and AC values. Monster changes, there's a stat block format, new abilities, encounter building. Spell changes, well, I never really went over spells. And then there's some class changes in there. But let's carry on to the next document. And we've got character creation this time. They've actually given us a full character creation system. So this is really getting towards a fuller set of the rules. While it's definitely not finished, and there's a lot of races and classes missing, we're really getting a peek in what they intend here. So we've got determinate ability scores. Choose race, choose class. Optional, choose a background. Optional, choose a speciality. Assign ability scores, figure out combat numbers. Add finishing touches, including alignment. And then play. And the future and advancement. So we've got the standard XP levels and the rough guide. So at level 2 you get skill training, level 3 you get feat, level 4 you get skill training plus 1 to 2 ability scores. And the next document, well, it's a character sheet, because the sample characters in this were just in raw text. So they've given you a character sheet so you can actually make up your characters, and it's all form fillable. It's very nice indeed, I have to say. No big skill list. There's none of that in this version at all. Skills are basically still assigned to your backgrounds instead of having a massive big skill list. But I can see what they're attempting to do here. It's still the same format as the sample characters in the first pack, but I like the layout. It's very compact. There's a lot of information here, so you can put in your race, class, background and specialities. And then we've got a document which is races. So we've got details of a dwarf, which includes the short and stout. What are they? Little teapots? But it goes through the different abilities. So dwarves are tenacious to a fault. They're short and stout. They're slow to trust. They've got clans and kingdoms. Cultural details. Hill dwarves. Mountain dwarves. You've got the different variants. Then we've got elves. Going through those, we've got the high elf and the wood elf. We've got halflings. And Lightfoot and Stouts are the two type them. We've got humans, where it details they are variety in all things, everyone's second best friends, making the point that humans are a good middle ground. Everybody likes them but not as much as their own races. But elves definitely like humans more than like halflings or dwarves. Dwarves definitely like humans more than they like elves and halflings, and so on. And that's it. We don't have gnomes, we don't have any of the fancy species which were introduced into the core rulebook in 5th edition. We are just the core sort of 4 races: elves, dwarves, halflings, humans. Then we've got classes. Now this is a very cut down list. We don't have anything fancy in here, but we've got clerics. With their weapon attack bonus, their magical attack bonus, how many spells they get, their different abilities. So at level 1 they get Channel Divinity, Divine Magic, Arisians, Religion, Domain, and it gives 2 examples: the Sun Domain and the War Domain. Then we've got the fighters, so they get their combat superiority and their fighting style. They can choose from Duelist, Protector, Sharpshooter and Slayer. But that's kind of odd to me, because isn't that what their specialities are supposed to be doing? Are they not supposed to be customizing the character? So if you're being a sharpshooter, so somebody who's very good with a bow and a crossbow, shouldn't you be choosing that as your speciality rather than anything else? It's starting to look overly complex. But we've got combat maneuvers here as well, because if I go back up a second, we can see we've got expertise dice. Now, expertise dice you use to power combat maneuvers, and you get different combat maneuvers at different levels. So we can see at first level you get combat superiority and fighting style. It's within the fighting styles where you choose, you get the combat maneuvers. So we have for the... Sorry, I've gone up too far. For the duelist, we've got combat maneuver, tumble, jab and shift. The protectors, they've got protect, push and knockdown. And they get to choose these abilities and power them from these expertise dice. Now, the expertise dice in this version seem to just do that. However, in later versions, they flesh them out a bit, where they become something quite interesting, but I can see why they weren't continued through. But basically, you're using these expertise dice to power stuff. So at first level, you've got 1d6, then it's up to a 1d8, so your abilities get more powerful. And at 5th level, you get 2d8, so you can use 2d8 on one of your abilities, so you can do a jab doing 2d8 damage, or you can do 2 jabs across the combat round, because these recharge every combat round. And then we're on to rogues, so they've got their abilities. We've got Thieves' Cant, Skill Mastery, Sneak Attack, Rogue Scheme, so they can be a thief, a thug, and they get different abilities at different levels for being those. And then level 2 they get Knack. And then we've got wizards, so we don't have rangers, paladins, monks here. Barbarians are gone, just the basic ones. And we can see these have their hit dice, their magic attack, weapon attack, what class features they get. So arcane magic, cantrips, arcane knowledge. And then we're on to the backgrounds. Well, these are still being quite interesting, although they're already being stripped down towards what they'll become in 5th edition. But you can choose your sample backgrounds. You're an artisan, and you can choose to be a blacksmith, a boyer, a fletcher, a brewer, a calligrapher. And basically you're getting trait item crafting. You can craft non-magical objects related to your craft by expending raw materials equal to 1/2 the market price of the item. So if you're a carpenter, you can make a chair by paying half the price that a chair costs in the rulebook. We've got bounty hunters who get their bounty board. When you're in an area of civilization, you can find and take on bounties, allowing you to legally hunt down and capture and kill subjects of these bounties. Charlatan, you get trait, a false identity. You have a second identity that includes documentation, established acquaintance, and disguises. So they've taken away the skills that you were getting as part of the backgrounds, and they're adding something else. And I do quite like that. It's quite nice. We've got the skills which you are talented as well. So a charlatan's got bluff, insight, and sleight of hand there. We've got commoners, we've got knights, we've got nobles, we've got priests, we've got sages, soldiers, spies, thieves, thugs. And then we've got the skill descriptions, so all the skills that you gain from these. And then we've got the specialities themselves. Well, as I said, these add feats. So you can be an archer, And at level 1 you get Rapid Shot, and at level 3 you get Sniper, with different benefits. As an action for Sniper, you choose a creature that you can see. Your next action using ranged weapon with which you have a proficiency has an advantage against that creature, so automatic advantage for choosing a creature. Now that's really cool. But is this not just the things you were choosing for your fighter anyway? Is this not doubling up? But there's nothing to say you can't be a thief archer. And we've got acolytes, dual wielders, guardians, healers, lurkers, magic users, jack of all trades there, necromancers, survivors, and just the abilities that you get with those. So that's a really nice way of customizing characters as well as the backgrounds. Next we've got the DM guidelines, so basically going through how to resolve tasks, everything we had in the last version, just detailing them out a bit more. Engage the players, ignore the dice when necessary, do multiple tasks for a job done over a longer period, tasks and skills. What else we got in here? Incidental tasks, creature sizes, just going through all the Dungeons & Dragons stuff, cutting it down. We've got experience awards here, so giving you a rough idea what to hand out, and magic items to be rewarded. And then we've got how to play, which is the more fully fleshed out version of the rules. So again, we've got checks, contests, advantage and disadvantage, the ability scores going through your strength, your dexterity, constitution, your intelligence, wisdom, charisma. We've got the exploration section. These will be very familiar to you if you play Dungeons & Dragons at all. Stealth, perception. Then we're on to combat. How rounds are set out, taking turns, how do you work out initiative, movement and actions in combat. Attack basics, making your attack roll, whether you've got cover, attacking unseen targets, melee attacks, ranged attacks. We've got the damage rolls. Damage and dying, so hit points, and we go into the detail. So we've got the death saving throws, which include the if you fail you take 1d6 damage, and you are allowed to take your level plus your constitution amount of damage below 0 before you actually pass away. They've kept that through to this version. We've got healing and resting. So the long rest has variants here. You've got slower hit point recovery. At the end of a long rest you regain no hit points, but you do regain all your hit dice and spend any number of them without using a healer's kit. So the same way you can in normal play by spending hit dice, you can heal up. This allows you to recover the hit dice and then spend them on healing up if you want. Another slower hit dice recovery. At the end of a long rest, you regain all of your hit points but not all of your hit dice. You regain a number of hit dice equal to 1 plus your constitution modifier. All round slow recovery. At the end of a long rest, you regain no hit points. You regain a number of hit dice equal to 1 plus your constitution modifier. You can spend any number of them without using a healer's kit use. It's a way of slowing down healing. While I'm not that keen on 5th edition, basically you're healing up completely just by taking a long rest, doing away with all damage, so you can't get whittled down by a long expedition into a dungeon. This is just fiddling with it. Either you commit to it or you don't. We've got the conditions, as usual. Then we're on to magic, minor spells. They include rituals. A ritual is a version of a spell which takes longer to cast and sometimes requires special materials to complete. The advantage of casting a spell as a ritual, you don't have to prepare the spell ahead of time. Drawback is completing a ritual takes several minutes and consumes expensive magical components. What else we got? The equipment list. So this is all very standard, just basically Dungeons & Dragons equipment. We've got different types of armor, weapons. There's nothing special in that, If we look at various swords here, what we got? Martial weapons. A longsword does 1d8 slashing damage. It's done that since 1st edition, since the basic Dungeons & Dragons. We've got improvised weapons, we've got masterwork weapons, silvered special weapons, and then a list of adventuring gear. And all the descriptions. And we're coming on to the spell section. So basically the spell descriptions, as it mentioned, these have changed slightly but they are basically recognisable. We've got fireballs with flaming spears, featherfall, dispel magic. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to recognise most of the spells here. And finally, we've got a Bestiary. Well, the Bestiary in the first pack only included monsters which were in the sample adventure. And this time they haven't included a sample adventure at all. I think this was mainly about character generation, really. But I suppose that's up to you. We go through various species, we've got drow, and we can see that little things have changed. Instead of them using fairy fire, just a spell, they now have dark fire and darkness. Gnolls, gnoll leaders, goblins, hobgoblins, humans, kobolds, minotaurs, ogres, orcs, all the standard ones, right through to zombies. So there's a lot of interesting things in there, like zombies ponderous. Zombie rolls a d6 instead of a d20 when rolling initiative. You know, they've played around with the abilities to make them a bit more interesting. I can see why those never stuck, because you need to read each monster up and know it before combat, and that's a lot for a dungeon master to know, but it does make things a bit more interesting. But anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one of these videos for Pack 3. But in the meantime, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.